I'm going to be talking with you today about cross-examination. When you conduct cross-examination, you'll be examining a witness called by the other side. So you don't expect that the witness will necessarily help you, but you should expect to be able to get some favorable testimony to help your case out of a witness even on cross-examination. The key to getting the most helpful testimony in cross-examination is controlling the witness and controlling the witness's testimony. There are two keys to controlling a witness's testimony on cross-examination. The first one is tone, and the second one is the wording of your questions. So let's talk about tone. In cross-examination, you want to come across as confident and in charge. You want to ask mostly leading questions that the witness will agree with based on what you know about the case or what the witness has said previously. And you want those leading questions to lead to an answer that you need to help your case. For example, instead of saying, "Mrs. Smith, what were you doing when you entered the intersection?" you would say, "Mrs. Smith, when you entered the intersection, you were talking on your telephone, weren't you?" That's a leading question. And you want the jury to see that you know what you're talking about. Even if the witness tries to quibble with you or argue with you, you want your tone to convey that you know the facts of the case and that what you're saying is true. The second important point, in addition to your tone, is the wording of your questions. You want short, tight, leading questions at all times. You want to keep your questions very simple, so that they can be answered with a yes or a no if possible. You don't want to have compound questions where you have two or three parts to the question, or where there are two or three facts that you're trying to get. So keep them short and simple and to the point, and ask them in a confident way. The other thing you don't want to do generally in cross-examination is you want to avoid open-ended questions that allow the witness to explain. You want your questions to be straightforward and to the point, and you don't want to ask a question generally that begins with a how or a why, because a how question or a why question would allow the witness to give a long explanation, and that's what you want to avoid in cross. So keep in mind those two keys. Your tone and the wording of your questions are very important in controlling the witness and getting the testimony you need. Now, with respect to choosing your topics for cross-examination, don't feel like you have to respond to every single point made on direct examination, because for some of those points you're not going to have a good response. So stay away from those. You want to think about what are the things this witness would have to agree with that I can establish on cross-examination, either because they've stated it in a previous deposition or a statement, or because it's just common sense. So think about what are the things the witness will most likely have to agree to, and focus on those. Pick your strongest points that help your case and structure your cross-examination around those. Generally, your cross-examination is going to be shorter than the direct examination because you're going to have the most important key things you need to get, and that's it. Get those points in a short, sharp, direct way and move on. That's what you need to do on cross. So don't try to cover everything. You also want to assess your witness when thinking about your topics. Is the witness an expert? Is it someone who's experienced with examination, cross-examination, and testifying? If so, you may not be able to get as much out of that witness as you might be able to get out of a fact witness or someone who's not an experienced testifier. Another important point for cross is being prepared to impeach your witness. If they give a different answer today than they gave when they gave their statement or their deposition, you're going to probably want to impeach them. It's important to know the rules of impeachment and to be able to follow those precisely. You want to use a witness's prior statement or a document that they've authored to impeach them. But it's key to have that statement or that document marked and ready to use. You want to be ready to go so that there are no gaps in what you're doing and you're able to quickly impeach the witness and show that they've said two different things. And that's really the point of impeachment. If you have to impeach a witness, you don't want to harass or intimidate them. You want to come across as professional and confident, and just be firm and make your point and move on. The audience of the mock trial will see when you do that that the witness has said two different things at two different times. Remember, if you plan to introduce exhibits, you need to know the rules for introducing exhibits in your mock trial and be ready to follow them. Don't count on being able to introduce a document, though, in a mock trial. Sometimes it's going to be hard to get a witness from the opposing side to agree with you on what you'll need to get a document into evidence. So if you need an exhibit for your case, try to get that admitted in advance or do it through your own witness rather than generally through cross, because that may be more difficult. You may also need to make objections in cross-examination. When the other side is doing their direct examination of a witness you're going to cross, they may be leading the witness or they may be putting words into the witness's mouth, and you need to make an objection to that. But be careful. You don't want to come across as obstructionist. You don't want to come across as someone who's just making objections to be heard. You want to reserve your objections for the times when opposing counsel's really putting words into the mouth of the witness. And if that happens, stand up and make your objection, and hopefully you'll get a favorable ruling. But remember, even if you don't, if the other side has led the witness to say something you believe isn't correct, you can cover that in your cross. You can make your point, make your strongest points that help your case, and get the witness to either say something different and correct themselves or show that they've said two different things. Remember, cross is for your best, your strongest points made in a confident, straightforward way. If you do that, you'll have fun and you'll enjoy doing cross-examination. Good luck.